Hi, I'm Marty Powers at the Shiloh Museum of Ozark History in Springdale, and today we're going to do something that I look forward to doing every year, and that is tapping some of our maple trees to make syrup. A lot of people think that's strictly a New Hampshire or Northeast Vermont, Northeast United States, but you can tap trees anywhere. And we, at the museum, we've got several species of maple, and years ago, the people that designed this were really smart and added some sugar maples for us. The sugar maples are the best of the maples to tap because the sugar content is higher and you get a little bit more sap from the sugar maple as opposed to the red maple or silver maple. But anyone can do it. It's really, you just need a drill and something to collect the sap in. And what the best thing to do is it has to be normally in January or February. The conditions that need to be in place for successful syrup making is you want the temperature at night to be below freezing, and then the next day the temperature needs to be above 40 degrees, and that allows the tree to pull up the maximum amount of water or sap. And also you want to use a tree that's a minimum of 10 inches in diameter. You don't want to tap anything smaller than that because it could damage the tree. And a lot of people ask, does it damage the tree? Well, trees are very resilient, and as long as your tree is over 10 to 12 inches in diameter and you don't tap in too deep into the tree with the drill, you shouldn't have any problem. And there are trees that are 100 years old that are tapped every year. But for our purposes, we've got this tree. It's about a 15, 16 inch diameter sugar maple. Once you've decided which tree you're going to tap, find a nice clean area at least 3 feet up. And again, I've got my drill marked for 1.5 inches so that I don't go any deeper into the tree. But you want to angle your drill up just a little bit so that it allows the sap to run back down in the spile. These are 7/16. You can use 1/2 inch, but these are just a little more friendly to the tree, a little bit smaller. So what I'm going to do is pick a place right here, aim the drill, just angle it up ever so slightly. There we go, I'm into that 1.5 inch mark. You take your spile, tap it in, just till it firms up. You don't want to go too hard because you could end up busting some of the wood around the edge, but this should start running here very quick. You take just a little bit for the sap to start coming. There we go. And anything you have that you can attach to collect the sap, these have a little hook built into them. I use these buckets with liners. Something you want to watch out for is you don't want ants to get in it or debris blowing around. But if you have several trees that you can tap, and you can kind of like run the gamut here and go from tree to tree, and you can collect a surprising amount of sap. And it's a good thing that you get lots of sap because the maple tree, sugar maple, it's 40 to 1 if you collect 40 gallons of sap that you'll boil down to make 1 gallon of syrup. So it takes a tremendous amount of sap to make a little bit of syrup, but it is worth every bit of it. It's delicious. And I think these sugar maples in Arkansas make some of the best flavored syrup that I've ever had. It's just fantastic. Also, a tree this size, you could put 2 taps on it. On a larger tree, you can put another tap off to the side somewhere, but for our purposes here, I'm just going to put 1 tap in because I don't want to overtax the tree. And it's actually the tree filters out everything in the water, so this sap it's good to drink. You can drink it right now. Whole Foods sells boxes of this actual sap. A lot of people think it's very healthy and good for you. I'd have to agree, it's good stuff. Today it's time to take the sap that we collected yesterday. We ended up tapping 8 trees, and we got just right at 5 gallons of sap from the maple trees. And so we've taken the sap, refrigerated it overnight, and then we ran it through a strainer to get out any impurities that may have been in it. And so now we've transferred the strained sap over into this big pot, and we've got the heat under it now, and we're going to cook it down. And all we're doing is just removing the water from the sap. The sugar maple has about 98% water in the sap, and the other 2% is the sugar that's in the sap. So we've got to get rid of that 98%, or not all the water, but we've got to get rid of most of the water by cooking it down. And it's kind of a long process, but it goes pretty smooth, and it's best to do it outside because there's so much steam coming off the pot. And something I forgot to mention yet, talking about tapping the trees, is you can tap a lot of trees, not just maple. The one that I'm anxious to try this year is a sycamore tree, and the sap from the sycamore, when you cook it down, it has a kind of a butterscotch flavor. And I've heard a lot of people talking about that, so I'm anxious to tap a sycamore tree and give it a try. But you can make, from this we can make syrup. There's all kinds of maple candies you can make, which just involves adding more heat and getting when we get down to the syrup, then it's a matter, you can stop, save your syrup, or you can keep heating it and you get it to a higher temperature, and you can make several kinds of candies with it. While you're boiling the syrup and kind of keeping it stirred, you'll notice there'll be some foam that kind of builds up on the top. It's a little bit of a discolored foam. That's just the impurities cooking out of the sap. And so if you can, just go ahead and scoop that stuff out and get it out of your syrup. Just makes it a little bit cleaner. We've been boiling the sap down here, and this pot is a 3-gallon pot, and so we started right up here at the top, and as you can see, the color is starting to change in the sap. It's getting a little bit darker colored, and it's really coming along nice. And when we get down to about the last, I don't know, maybe the last 2 quarts of sap in here, it's going to be, that's where it gets kind of critical, how much heat you put to it and how much you reduce it, because you want to, it's got to be just right to be syrup. If you overcook it, you'll end up with, it'll turn to sugar, and you can still use it to make candy and stuff like that, but to get just right syrup, we're going to cook it down a little bit more here, and then we may take it inside and put it on the stove so we can handle it a little bit better at the stove and keep an eye on it a little bit better. But this setup works really good to get it reduced, but to actually make the syrup, we're just going to put it on the stove where we can keep a little bit better eye on it. Okay, our 3 gallons of sap has been boiling here for about 2.5–3 hours, and we've got down to where the sugar is really concentrated now, and that's a lot of this foaming right here that you're seeing on top, and the color's darkening up really nicely. So this is not very far from being syrup, but you have to be really, really careful. You don't want to burn it, and if you cook it a little too long, the sugar will actually harden. And so we're going to let this go just a little longer, and then we're probably going to move it inside to the stove. The only real tricky part about syrup is that last few minutes of cooking, and where your sap actually turns into syrup. So we'll move into the kitchen and finish this in just a little bit. All right, we've tapped our trees. We harvested the maple sap, and we cooked it down in the fish cooker outside because of all the steam that it puts out. And so today we're going to go ahead and finish making the syrup. We're just going to transfer this sap, which has been cooked down, but it's not quite syrup yet. You see, it's got a darker color. The sap was crystal clear, just like water, but we've cooked it down enough that it's got the look of syrup and it's getting pretty close. We're just going to heat that up, and we're going to continue to evaporate it just a little bit longer until it makes the change into syrup. And that should happen, oh gosh, it won't take us maybe 15-20 minutes on a stovetop like this. And then there's a couple of ways to know when the sap is officially syrup, when it has more than 2/3 of the water out of it. One thing is how it drips off a spoon, and the other will be the temperature of it boiling. Just the pure sap and water boils at 212 Fahrenheit, and that's as high as it will go. But when the water disappears out of the sap and you're just syrup, then the temperature will go up higher, and that's how you know that you've achieved the syrup stage. All right, here we are at the final stage of our syrup making, and it's really been cooking down nicely. We've got a pretty good boil going here, and as it begins to convert over into syrup, the water boils at 212 Fahrenheit. Well, syrup with the increased sugar is a higher boil point, and you can't get this above 212 when it's just the sap. But as it converts into syrup, the temperature will start going higher, and so I'm looking for about another 6 or 7 degrees, and I'm just now getting that. We're up to about 217 right now, and that's about the magic number we're looking for. Yep. Okay, so we have converted it's syrup now. Still awfully hot, and be careful because it could get burned. Make sure kids don't come around it. But this is what we're after right here. So take this off the heat. We'll get our jar ready. Now, if you'll remember, we started out in our big pot. We had 3 gallons of sap. It was crystal clear, and we started cooking that down out on the fish cooker. Got it down to where this pan was full. We've continued cooking down to this amount. This is good stuff. I promise you, this is better than what you'll buy in the store. For some reason, these trees in northwest Arkansas they make wonderful syrup. But as you can see, there's already a film starting to show on the top as it cools. And it'll be runny at first, but after it cools down, it'll get really, really thick. I'm going to go ahead and pour this into the jar so we can get a better look at it here. And again, if for some reason you overcook the syrup, if you cook it a little too long, you can go ahead and turn it into candy, maple candy. You just get a candy thermometer and you just keep boiling it until you get the desired temperature, which is, gosh, I'd have to look it up, but as soon as you get it to that high temperature, take it off the stove, stir it good and hard with a wooden spoon, and it'll harden up into a maple candy, which is very good. And this has been done for years. Native Americans, indigenous people, actually showed the Pilgrims how to make syrup. That's kind of a neat story. If you try some of this, try to make some, you won't be sorry. It's not just fun to make, but it will not stay in your refrigerator very long. It's that good. Trust me.